The world of software development was very different back in the 90s and the 2000s. Everyone was trying to come to grips with how popular the PC and personal computing in general were becoming. Suddenly, Microsoft's motto of a computer on every desk seemed like it was going to become real, and more people were using them and using broadband and using web browsers to access content on the internet. A series of increasingly serious attacks against personal computers, viruses, worms, malware attacks, led people to realize that something had to be done to try and improve the quality of software. One incident in particular made Microsoft realize they needed to implement a more formal cycle, the security development life cycle, for developing their software, and do what it took to get that put in place. But what was this event, and what were the changes that it led to that made software development better? Hi, I'm John Miller, the Deliberate Engineer. I spent much of the last 30 years working as a professional software developer in big tech companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and so on. In fact, I was actually at Microsoft in 2000, 2001, 2002 when the incident that I was talking about happened. I had the good fortune to be part of the Universal Plug-and-Play team, a team of about 20 developers. There had been issues before, but this was literally the security straw that broke the camel's back. In 2000 and 2001, Microsoft developed a new technology called Universal Plug-and-Play, or UPnP. UPnP was intended to allow computers and devices to find each other on local networks, for example, to find routers or printers or audio devices or even light switches, and then allow them to be controlled. Now, UPnP was actually an umbrella term for a set of services. One of those protocols was SSDP, the Simple Service Discovery Protocol. This allowed services to advertise themselves and to beacon out so that other computers on the network would know where the service was and how to contact it. It used an underlying service called WININET, Internet and Networking Protocol Provider within Microsoft Windows. SSD was part of Windows XP, and if I remember correctly, it was enabled by default, which means that when a computer upgraded to Windows XP, or if it was running Windows XP, or even if it had a software patch installed on it, then it was likely that the SSDP service would be running, whether or not you were actually using UPnP. In late 2001 or early 2002, a bug was found in WININET that was accessible through SSDP. In other words, SSDP used WININET in such a way that this bug could be exploited. If a person crafted a particular packet in a certain way and broadcast it on the local network, and they did so at just the right timing, they could wind up causing a stack overrun in a local SSDP service which is running as a system user. This in turn would allow an attacker to take control of that PC, which is just awful. So this is a really serious attack, being able to broadcast information that every PC running a certain version of Windows will hear, and if you time it right, they will be compromised and under your control. One side note, this sounds absolutely awful and unforgivable, but I can tell you after working at a variety of different companies, they all have problems like this. They have things that if you're a security person, you find out how this piece of software protects its data or that piece of software listens on the network, it'll turn your hair gray in a hurry. Anyways, despite me saying that this happens other places, this attack against SSDP and WININET really was a big deal. But more than that, it was a big deal following on the heels of lots of other big deals. And like I said earlier, really the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of leading to a significant change in how software was produced. Microsoft decided to do something more systematic and bigger than just patch that particular problem. Instead, what they do was put all software development at Microsoft on hold. This was a security reset. And they had a team of experts devise a way of developing software and things that should or shouldn't be done to lead to more secure software in the future. Part of this was invented at Microsoft. A lot of it was just good security practices that people knew but didn't necessarily apply in their day-to-day work because it takes time, it takes effort, and the attacks are relatively rare. It's just that when the attacks come, they're serious enough that you really wish you'd done the right defenses. I can't overemphasize what a big deal this security reset was. At Microsoft, we were always under time pressure. There was always more work to get done than we could possibly do, so people put in extra time. Anyways, people were used to working hard, and so to have the whole company say, stop, let's stop for a month or 2 months or 3 months or however long it takes, and really fix a security problem, that was a big commitment. You're talking about taking maybe 20,000 engineers off of their day-to-day job and instead have them learn about security. The direct effect of this is to delay shipping any new products for at least those couple of months. And that is something that could lead to billions of dollars of revenue loss for the company, or at least opportunity loss, which is a really big deal. One of the first things that was done was to create a curriculum of security practices and security information to help set the right mindset for all of the developers at Microsoft. This is something that wound up taking, I don't remember exactly, but somewhere between 6 hours and 2 days of developer time to attend these conferences where they explained to us the right way to develop things and really motivated why we were in so much danger in terms of attacks and why it mattered to do these things. They made all new materials for it, and in fact those materials, in conjunction with a new book that was written called, I believe, Writing Secure Software, really set the stage for Microsoft to have a set of best practices. Now just think about this. 20,000 engineers all going and attending a set of talks that educate them on how to be better engineers and how to write code securely. It's an awesome, awesome thing that Microsoft did. After we'd been educated, after we'd read through the book and the tools had been released that would let us make the code more secure, doing things like prohibiting use of stir copy and other unchecked copy routines and a variety of other routines that could easily be used in a way that would lead to an error, all those were prohibited. Then we went and looked at all of the existing source code and we had to go and update it to match the new security requirements. This is something that, again, in Windows, I think it probably took an average of 6 weeks per team. For our team, it was about 2.5 months, a little more because the code was bigger and a lot of the people who had written the original code had left for Universal Plug and Play. But anyways, just imagine this. If you're a developer working in a team and suddenly somebody says, every line of code that was written for the product, we have to go and make sure it's compliant, make sure it's well written. You have to look at this code, figure out what it's doing, figure out what the intentions are. Sometimes it's straightforward, you just substitute one API for another. But other times it might have to do with the way information is processed, taking a look at things like strings to make sure they don't have any escape codes in them for the particular context that string is going to be in, all kinds of things that are actually quite complicated and take a fair amount of effort to clean up. So it was a big deal. The security work didn't stop there at just cleaning up the existing source code. They also put a bunch of new practices into place that had to be done retroactively for some of the existing products and were part of the life cycle for shipping anything new. For example, requiring threat models and coming up with data flow diagrams and analysis to explain where information goes and how. Having a cryptography review of any use of cryptographic APIs. And of course, having to comply with all the tools, both static code analysis tools and dynamic tools, fuzzing tools, that were now being run against the code to make sure that there was nothing there that was going to be especially vulnerable. Microsoft also created a new team, the Engineering Excellence Team, with the goal of leading the way in identifying great practices, celebrating them, sharing them, and educating people. The team had sort of mixed results in my opinion, but there's no doubt it was a good idea and that it did a lot of good, especially in the early years as we were improving the culture of engineering at Microsoft. So it's another thing that the company did to try and address these security problems. So yeah, that happened. Microsoft actually had a security issue that was large enough that they shut down software development at the whole company. They reset the way that you develop software there for 20,000 developers, and they had everybody go back and look at the existing code and improve it in ways that would make it more secure. Microsoft gets a lot of negative publicity and negative attention where people say, oh, the code is crap and it's full of bugs and it's not secure or anything. But I can tell you, it's not for lack of process and it's not for lack of trying. I think it's great that the company pays so much attention to security and that they were willing to take this time and take this money hit to have all the developers learn how to do a better job of creating software for consumers. Now, Microsoft wasn't the company that invented secure development, and they weren't the original people who did it, but they added a lot of value and created a lot of processes that are used throughout industry. So not only did they help the security of their own code, I feel like they did some good things for other companies that are out there and helped encourage a sort of a culture of being more mindful of what can go wrong in terms of security, We still have a long way to go, but if you're not trying to move forward, then you're almost certainly moving back. Well, that's pretty much it for today. Were you at Microsoft during the security reset? Is there anything that I missed or anything you want to correct? Or have you been through similar processes yourself? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments down below. Thanks for watching to the end, and keep on pushing forward. Hi, this is John. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing so you get notified of my future videos. Also, if you are interested, you might want to check out the video I have linked here. Thanks, and keep on pushing forward.